What's up, squad? It's Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I recently posted a video about the power vacuum that's going to occur because African colonies are kicking out their former French overlords. And as the French was leaving, that was going to open up this vacuum for leadership and influence on the continent. And begrudgingly and unfortunately, there weren't that many countries in Africa that I believe could fill that void. And I've attributed that power opening being filled by foreign influencers. And I'll put it this way. One of the reasons I got into geopolitics, or the primary reasons I got into geopolitics, is when I grew up, I didn't grow up in a rich family or even a rich community per se. And like Jared Diamond in his works, Guns, Germs, and Steel, I had a curiosity for the question of what makes some nations rich and some nations poor. And the answer comes over and over again. And it's always the same two answers that I arrive at, the same two conclusions that I arrive at. One, both aspects of geopolitics, and one of it called software, and one of it called hardware. One, of course, will be culture, right? And the other, that would be your software. Something that is so subjective to the individual and is malleable. At least within the individual, it's subjective. The culture from individual to individual can vary greatly. And the other is the hardware, something more fixated, finite. Of course, you can, and that's going to be geography, right? The two great influencers of one's dispositions in their life is their culture, their mindset, and their geography, their location. Your position in life is highly influenced, and your position and your ability to rise or fall from that position is extremely influenced on where your feet are and where your mind's at. Your geography and your culture. And a reason why I say this is because I believe there is a shortage or there's a gap on the African global mind. And when I say that, I'm obviously including myself because I'm speaking about Africa in total. The children of Africa over the last, what you could say, 500-600 years in the modern era that has spread throughout the world, whether that's Africans born on the continent or born in other parts of the world, such as myself in the United States, Canada, the Caribbean, Latin America, etc. And there are a lot of pressing issues that the African needs to address. And as I deal with various countries day in, day out, and I see how they approach their challenges and overcome them, some of them get things right. Some of them don't get things right yet, but they're making an earnest effort. And some just makes no efforts and gets things wrong completely. And I think that's the great concern, is because the lack of a global African mind is really to the detriment. I think that's probably one of the biggest obstacles facing the individual African today. And many people will say, well, how do you connect those things? And it's obvious to me. Because if you look at the effects, does a strong China not create opportunities for the Chinese at home and abroad? Does a strong Israel not create opportunities for the Israeli at home and abroad? Does the strong India not create more opportunities for the Indian at home and abroad? So, what do you think are the ramifications and repercussions of a weak Africa? Will it not vary in direct correlation and proportion to strength? Is weak not inversely correlated to strength? As Africa struggles at home, will the African not struggle abroad? And it seems as though there's not that many people of the African ilk that wants to confront this question. On a global level, either they seek to find refuge in other people's home, which is creating great backlash, as you can see in Europe right now, in the rise in nationalist movement, it's a further brain drain on the continent, and it still solves no problem. If you can I'll do a quick round robin. You can go to the United States. African Americans, Americans of African descent, whatever you want to call us, sits on some of the finest geography that this country has to offer, right? Every major city, every major nexus, from New York, Chicago, St. Louis, New Orleans, Memphis, are occupied with African Americans. These are the intermodal nexus, the nexus of transportation within the continental America. Phenomenal geography. The South, phenomenal geography. It's extremely large, fertile, with resources right there on the oil coast, with coal, access to iron, and even more, right? But what are the literacy rates? Where are the scholars that are being produced in mass? And where are the people that are seeking to solve the problems that afflict African American communities, right? And I think this is really interesting because African American communities, we should be at the forefront because so much have been given to us. A lot of our wealth have been inherited because a rising tide lifts all boats. And America, being the wealthiest country that the world has ever seen, has produced great opportunities that maybe our cousins overseas have not been able to access. So leadership is almost incumbent to us. As they say, great power comes great responsibility. Simple things such as that. But you look at the leading arguments of the politics of the day, it's reparations. And you can say that on a lot of degree. Even some Caribbean countries or Caribbean thought leaders think this as well. And if you understood the chasm, looking at cause effect in a global environment of countries that have succeeded and failed, the gap between reparations and the mindset of a person pursuing reparations compared to the actions and mindsets of countries that actually achieve their economic development goal, that chasm would make you weep. It is not even on the same planet. Those two different mindsets. You look at the Caribbean. The Caribbean has a population density issue. These are specks of land in the middle of the ocean, never meant for real nationhood. They were established as colonial appendages, and since have received populations, immense populations, of millions and millions and millions of people on islands which are in no way, shape, form close to any form of self-sustainability. And you can even lump in South America because what I'm saying is you have this grace rich human potential in these islands, right? These could be the service centers of the world. And you can see that with what the British have done with something, made them into Wi-Fi networks, whether that's going to be for banking and finance, real estate, etc., but off-sea services, which you can provide within this part of the region. There's various things you can do with the human potential of the Caribbean, and there's no reason why a textile mill should be more profitable in South Asia than it should be in the Caribbean Sea with America next door. Haiti, the poorest country, considered the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, right? But its population speaks less than 5% of its population speaks English. How is this possible? How are they next to one of the greatest economic machines in the world and they can't even communicate with them? And it's no wonder it has economic challenges. It's because in the geography it's in, it has no ability to offer true value to the easiest customer it has, the United States. Brazil is massive. Brazil is massive. Still considered the largest African population outside of the continent. 2/3 Amazon. It is so untapped in Brazil. It's things they haven't even discovered yet on that country. But where is the African leadership and forethought on the development and the creativity of how you can utilize the Brazilian rainforest to improve or enhance society as a whole, not just for African people, but people as a whole, especially in this day and age of green technology, hydropower, and a clean environment. And then I'll go lastly to the continent of Africa. You have the expanding Sahara Desert. One of the reasons this came up is because I was just reading an article about President Biden visiting Angola. Angola, who I always history has shown, regardless of the communist socialist rhetoric, Angola has always proven itself to be a pseudo ally in one form or another to American corporations. So it doesn't surprise me that Biden chose to go here for his visit. And Angola, I believe, is the largest oil exporter in the southern hemisphere to date. So that in business, hence you get the American business relationship. But they're developing the Lobito corridor, going through Angola, through the southern regions of the Congo, from the Katanga regions, which is immensely minerally rich, and all the way to the copper belt of Zambia, and or the interiors of Africa. And people were talking about they can't even connect this as far. If they wanted to continue to develop this, can connect this as far as the Zara Railway. They can bring this corridor connecting all of sub-Saharan Africa at that tip between Tanzania, Angola, or Mozambique, and Angola. But basically, you're going coast to coast with infrastructure being developed from the outside of Africa for utility of the outside of Africa. And all the people can say on the ground is, they're taking resources from Africa, but are you using the resources? And do you have a right to, one can say, let these resources go to misuse or not utilize them? Now, you could argue that, but it doesn't matter. What the world has shown, historically speaking, is some people in this world are not going to starve. And if you don't utilize your resources, they will utilize your resources. It's for coming that you understand, know how to utilize your resources, and then you can sell, supply, and basically adjust the supply as needed. If you are in command of your resources, now you control the supply, and you can increase and decrease as needed on global stage. But if you don't even know how to manage your own resources, what do you think people are going to do? They're not going to wait for you to learn. So I look at this as you see, they say it's to basically keep China out. But as I said in my prior video, the Anglosphere wants a part of Africa is strategic. And they're only going to let China go so far, influence it so far because of the vast potential. But where is the great African mind, the great global African mind, putting the continent together? Where is the African version of Cecil Rhodes? You say what you want about colonials, but when they got to Africa, after being in a resource in relatively small continent of Europe, they had ideas. They had a mission. This is where you get Cape to Cairo. They saw all this land. Do you know what an industrious and energetic group of people can do with the rivers of the Congo? Do you think it would be a dry spot in Africa if the people of the Congo were to really put their mind to how they can fully utilize the abundant resources of the many rivers that grow across Central Africa and the rainforest? Like the Sahara Desert will be an afterthought. And let's not forget that a lot of the distress and pain points, and this is what I'm saying, African people solving African problems. You have a situation where the Sahara expansion is one of the major pressure points in the Sahel. It's the expansion and resource scarcity that's driving up a lot of violence, which is allowing the opportunity for outside forces to pay groups to terrorize in this area and build up influences. Because what's they going to do once they occupy this is just pillage the resources, because it's a lot of resources there as well. And it's also pushing the population because of the desertification of the Sahara. As it steady pushes, the desert expands and pushes the population southern. It also creates these very dense population centers, causing overpopulation and a lower quality of living. Like, these are all serious questions that the African world needs to answer. And I have not heard the global African mind come up or even pretend to put these things as priorities. Nobody talks about these things. Nobody's talking about the economic development of Black America. Amidst real estate that they sit on, no one talks about the global integration of the Caribbean islands. No one talks about the development of northern parts of Brazil. No one talks about the management of Sahara Desert. This is a mute issue, but people are talking about it's just shocking. People are talking about who needs to pay who, not so much of how we develop our talent and get them out there to produce. How do we create engineers and scholars, the people that we need to actually provide opportunity for us in the future? So I just found that unfortunate. Now, you might think that I'm taking things in the wrong direction. I would love to hear your thought. Of course, and right now I'm working on a project to highlight some of these issues in the world and give account and propose some possible solutions from my studies of geopolitics and what I've seen other countries do. So of course I want to bring that to the forefront, but I definitely think the global African mind is something that is direly needed, especially in these ever-changing times of the world, because as I said, other people aren't going to starve because you're starving. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. Until next time, take care. Bantu up.